Welcome back to Bunny Banter, the first and only podcast for everything Killer Bunnies. I'm your host, Matt. We're here again with Mikey today as the co-host.
Hello?
And we have a special guest today, Chris.
Hello.
Chris isn't well known in the Killer Bunnies community necessarily. He goes by Ludacris in the Discord. However, he is well known in our groups because over the course of last year, predicted the winning carrot out of 50 carrots, three separate occasions, among several other moments of prophecy. So we call him our Killer Bunnies prophet, the Elijah of Killer Bunnies, if you will.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun abusing that power, if you will.
Ironically, usually when he predicts it, someone else has it. So that's the sad thing. So if you ever
And
play,
oftentimes when I do predict it, it does, then people are like, okay, maybe that carrot might mean something, so I'm just going to steal that one instead.
yep, that's how I win. Is I just wait for Chris to predict the carrot, and then I just steal that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the secret strategy. Everything from the passivity meta, yes, last episode, 2 weeks ago. None of that matters. Just steal the winning carrot from Chris. But
Yeah.
if you don't have Chris playing, then the passivity meta is how you have to go. But anyways, what's the topic for today, Mikey?
Today, well, we are talking about defense cards.
Defense cards. And why are we
Mhm.
talking about defense cards?
We are talking about defense cards because in the upcoming booster set, La-Di-Da London, correct?
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be 12 small cards introduced in this new set, and we know that four of them are going to be carrots.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have eight remaining ones, and we know that they can't be the 10 Underground stations because there are 10 Underground stations and only eight small cards left. And so Matthew, in all his infinite knowledge and glory, has speculated that we will be having new defense cards.
Yeah, that's what that I'm pretty proud of that prediction. I'd say it's like I'm 95% confident. Next thing we'll know, the preview will be released tomorrow and will prove me wrong, but who knows? So if we want to get into the numerology here, defense cards 1 through 12 were the defense units 1 through 12 were originally released in Quest Red and Violet, and then four boosters later we got units 13 through 20. Again, in Conquest Violet, we got 1 through 12, and in Fantastic Booster, we got the 0. That's kind of the outlier. Uh, so 13 through 20, that's 8 cards. That's exactly what we're looking for. And London is the fourth booster to be released after Fantastic Boosters, so the math works out. So I said I'm like 95% confident this is the case. This information is from the Ultra Pro preview of London Booster, by the way. That's how we know there's 12 small cards. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description. Uh, let's get into our first discussion question here. How likely do you expect this speculation is correct? I've already said I'm fairly confident, but Mikey, what do you think?
Well, I have no reason to think that you're wrong, um, unless they're going to add something new, which probably won't happen. Um, yeah, I think you're probably correct with this speculation.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I would say so too. It makes sense, at least from our circle that we play in. Um, Honestly, we don't use defense cards for a majority of the games, honestly. It's kind of one of those things if you have extra dollar or maybe you have a gleeful pink or red and you have extra money to spend that maybe you pick defense cards instead.
hmm Yeah, that brings
So
that's
it
a
would make sense that Jeff would want to encourage more of that play.
hmm Yep, I agree. So that's a good transition into our first discussion quest about defense cards. And this one's a very simple one. There will now be a total of 41 defense cards. That's a lot. Initial thoughts on that number? Let's go with Chris.
Well, I've been playing Killer Bunnies for a long time now, and we've had full set for I don't know what 2 years at least, 3 years.
Well, we just got Conquest Violet within the past year,
True,
but
true
yes.
enough.
Yeah.
I've always felt like we never really run out of defense cards. So unless there's more support for them or we start using them more because they all of a sudden get popular within our circles, I don't see it affecting it too much.
Hmm. How about you, Mikey?
Well, kind of going off of what Chris said about running out of them. So last podcast, I talked about how I don't use defense cards all that much. Um, but recently, I have at home, I've only had the starter set. I recently bought the next 9 expansion boosters, and I have been teaching my sisters. And uh, I just introduced the red booster set. And so we're just getting into defense cards. And now I've started to use them more. And just with the one booster, you run out pretty fast.
Hmm.
Um, so I haven't added all of them yet, but I think that it'll be nice because I'm starting to understand the value of the defense cards now
Hmm.
as a preventative measure. And so having a, a large amount of defense cards will be really nice, especially if you're in a group with a lot of people who recognize the value of the defense cards.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that brings up an interesting point that I didn't necessarily put in the discussion here, but that's that both Chris and I, when we were originally learning the game, that was during a time where the red booster of Quest was never in stock. So we didn't
That's
actually
true.
get, and Conquest Violet was never in stock either, which is where defense cards are introduced again. So we actually didn't really get to experience the original adding of defense cards compared to everything else. We got to experience pawns before them. So
Oh wow.
perhaps that would have something to do with how you've started using defense cards more, because you've experienced them within the context of starter plus red, and
Yep.
how we use them less because we've been so used to pawn strategies that we haven't explored defense card
Yep,
strategies.
yep.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'd
Uh,
agree with that. And the other thing too is I've often found that even in our groups, we tend to lean towards getting a cabbage or water if we have an extra $3 lying around.
because of the forever potential.
Right, right. Especially because of that now. But even before that, food always had a little bit more of a trade value in our circles.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh yep.
I wouldn't say that we ever really used defense cards until maybe recently when we've kind of completed the full set. Um, the thing with defense cards, of course, is you have to have a reason to take them per se. Like you're not going to be buying defense cards when you don't even have a bunny.
Exactly.
Hmm.
You know, why would you be saving them up? Because then you're just asking yourself to lose them later.
Hmm.
Um, if you have a bunny and you have the ability to protect it, we were talking about this earlier, Matthew, that um, it's a lot more efficient, I would say, to get a defense card and stop a weapon than to buy a bunch of food and hope that it's enough to feed the bunny.
Hmm. Yeah. We'll be getting more into the specifics on the math and that later, but yes, that's definitely the case. Um,
Yeah, and we
ha
hadn't really thought about that, until recently.
yep.
Um, but
Yeah. As for my perspective on now, there'll be 41 of them. Goodness, that's a large number. Um, the thing is, currently, from all the groups I've played in, defense cards will pretty much not run out. The only case I've seen them run out is the case where you get a low prices on the Rooney's Emporium.
Hmm.
And because then defense cards can be bought for $1, which is insane. More on the math on that later, but it's insane. Just trust me on that for now. But then $41. That's not much, all things considered,
Hmm.
to purchase all those defense cards, and then somebody plays EM Pulse on you and you cry yourself to sleep that night. More or less how it goes. Currently, a lot of the groups I play in will purchase defense cards only when they have something like the red gleeful and they have the $3 per turn anyways.
Hmm.
However, metals kind of took the place of that, where if you sell the metal and buy it back with the red gleeful, you get a strict $3 instead of the having to spend it. You can just save that dollar, and
I mean,
that's kind of
yeah.
taking the
And
place of defense cards.
besides that, our circle really doesn't use defense quite that often. So having the $3 is, in a lot of ways, making the game go forward a little bit faster because you're able to save up for carrots towards the end of the game.
Hmm.
And you're also able to save up for, if you want to buy metals and keep exchanging them, that's really helpful too.
Yeah. I just realized here that for anyone new to the red booster, we haven't described what defense cards do.
Oh, I suppose
So
that would be something that we
now it's
should do.
probably a good time to do that since we didn't do it at the beginning. Defense cards are random amounts like cabbage and water. How they work is you spend the amount equal to or greater than a weapon level, and all of your bunnies will be protected from that weapon. So, for example, if somebody plays the nuclear warhead, you can spend 12 defense units and all of your bunnies will be protected. And not your opponent's bunnies if it happens to reach them as well. So that's interesting mechanic there. The downside is that you do not get change when you're spending defense cards, unlike food supplies. There's no change given. So if you have just like a 15 defense unit, somebody plays the warhead on you, you do not get 3 defense units back. You spend all 15. There you go. That's the defense card mechanic that we have neglected to explain. I'm glad I realized that 10 minutes in and not an hour in. So let's go to the next discussion question here. Adding more high value defense cards because we're expecting a 13 through 20 on the defense units to be added, just like with the stainless steel booster. Increases expected value from purchasing them. So some thoughts on this, and we can get into the math here now if we want. Mikey, you can go first with some initial thoughts on the higher value defense supply.
Well, it's a little OP. Um, it, I suppose it's a good thing. I mean, you spend $3, in basic starter when you're starting out, $3 per defense unit, and you could get 20 defense cards, and you get 20 defense units. That's a pretty good deal. Um, One of the thoughts that I had, and if your speculation is correct, this won't happen. But imagine if Jeff were to create an infinite defense unit card.
That would be terrifying.
That would be, you would be invincible.
Oh,
So,
even if it's not infinite, what if he just added defense vouchers?
oh no.
And and
Oh,
all of a sudden we have change.
well, yeah. Thankfully, the rules explicitly say change is not given. It's not just a lack of vouchers. If that rule was changed, oh, no pun intended. If the rule was changed, uh,
ah, it
jokes.
took a little while.
If the rule was changed, that would. Oof, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Let's all take a moment to be thankful of two things: that there is no forever defense, and that there is no change given. Um,
For sure.
I'm going to mention the math here, how we calculate the value of a single defense unit, because obviously we know the objective value a defense card is worth 3. That's what we base our calculations off of. So from that, you can take the average value of each defense card and do the divide the $3, and the what the math comes out to is currently the average cost of a single defense unit is $0.1. 1/10 of a dollar is what a defense unit costs. Once the new ones are added, we're looking at 0.09. For the oh wait, no, that's the wrong number. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong numbers. I have failed. No,
I
that
thought
that
this looked good, but
I'm
the
looking at the wrong numbers. I confused
I was,
myself. Sorry. Those are the
I was,
values at low prices. So that's the toxic case of defense cards cost one. No, no, no.
yeah,
The defense cards at standard prices are $0.34, so about a third of a dollar for a defense unit,
yeah.
and the new price will be about zero point 0.3. 0.29 if you want to be more exact there for defense unit. So the average cost is going down, of course. That's how the math works
Not
out. Um,
not down all that much though. It's
yeah,
not.
it's not that
But
much, but it definitely adds up.
Yep.
Um, that's a huge value. We'll get into efficiency here in a second, but zero point 0.3 for a defense unit. You imagine let's take the kitchen whisk for example. Let's take
mhm.
the weakest example of efficiency for a second as we transition into that. The kitchen whisk has a 1 in 12 chance of killing the bunny. The bunny's worth 10, so thus we value it at about 0.83. One defense unit is 0.34, so it's already more efficient than the kitchen whisk. Congratulations.
Huh.
It efficient. No, that's I didn't phrase that quite right. It efficiently deals with the kitchen whisk. As in, you
Mhm.
can justify spending your defense units on the kitchen whisk, and you have gained dollar essentially. Uh,
Huh.
That's pretty crazy.
Transitions directly into our efficiency questions.
Oh, I'm excited about this.
Oh, this gets pretty exciting. There's different ways we can calculate efficiency, and I provided two in the reference I have here. The first way is like I just did, where we compare it to the value of the weapon. Or we could compare it to the cost of the weapon more specifically, since the kitchen whisk could be bought back for $1. If we compare those, let's just compare. Let's take the nuclear warhead for example right now. Nuclear warhead costs $12 to buy back. And of course, it's a decent weapon to buy back. You have the opportunity to kill 5 bunnies. That's pretty good.
Mhm.
Compared to the value of defense cards, where you only need 12 defense units to defend from that weapon, you have gained 2.8 times the value, 280% efficiency from your defense cards. Wait, am I looking
Wow.
at the wrong number? Am I looking at the right number? Hold on.
Don't know.
You
Uh,
might say you're not being very efficient with the numbers, Matthew.
Nope, I looked at the wrong number. I failed again. I clearly made a terrible reference here. No, it's worse than that. No, it's the efficiency's more than that. Efficiency at standard prices for the weapon, comparing the level 12 weapon spending $12 on it versus the 12 defense units at point 3 apiece for the current prices. The current efficiency is 2.9 times the value, so 290% efficiency. We're getting into a lot of math
Wow.
here, but that's what this comes down to ultimately.
Math is hard.
Math
Ugh.
is hard, especially when you're looking at the wrong numbers. Uh, so that's the current efficiency. Thoughts on that current efficiency, Mikey?
To be honest, I don't understand the numbers. So I'm
I
guessing it's good, but it doesn't really I can't comprehend it in my brain.
I think
If you wanted to think about it this way, if you spend some amount of dollar on defense
Okay.
units,
Yep.
multiply that by the what number was I looking at here? 2.9. So if you spend $9 on defense units, you essentially gain three times that. So you gain basically gained
27.
$18 for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd
You
be 27 minus the difference. So
Yeah. Compared to the
yeah.
efficiency of the weapons, which we can calculate from the price of buying them back, it's a
Hmm.
little bit more complicated than in practice, but just looking at objective value, spending $9 on defense units right now at the standard prices is as if you gain $27 value.
Wow.
you profit 18.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, I think a lot of these numbers will make more sense when we talk about the applications of the defense card.
yes,
Probably.
for sure, yeah. Note that at the low prices, the efficiency is even more, where it's actually at 4.3 times the value. So if you spend
Mhm.
$9, you've all of a sudden gained over same amount of dollar back. Gets
Hmm.
pretty crazy if we get into how efficiency it is. Um, so we could also compare it to the efficiency of buying the bunnies back. So let's pretend for a moment that somebody played the nuclear warhead on me and I had 5 bunnies. If I spend my 12 defense units on that, and we
Mhm.
compare the price of buying back those 5 bunnies instead of saving them with the 12 defense units, the 5 bunnies would cost $50 at the objective price.
Yep.
Therefore, we have gained 12 times efficiency at standard prices.
Now,
Wow.
to be fair though, you have to have the knowledge to buy your defense cards before the weapon is played.
Very
True.
true. Yes, so that
So, whereas your feed the bunnies, which require cabbage and water, or radish and milk, you have the opportunity next turn to pay for those and then feed them, in most cases.
hmm
Yep.
Yeah, everything but the
So,
feed immediately situations, yeah, which are rare.
right, right. So, what we're really talking about here is you have to have the knowledge and maybe like you're going to be planning to be buying defense cards before your weapons are played on you.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, it also is worth considering that when we're talking about, hey, you've multiplied your dollar by 12, that's true, but if you want to compare it that way, in terms of efficiency, however, you have limited the options for that dollar. You have
Hmm.
committed that specific amount of Kabbalah dollar to only protecting your bunnies from weapons.
Yep.
So it's if you only had weapons played on you, it's as if you multiplied your dollar by 12. But unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there are several other ways to attack players. Unfortunately
Yeah.
for the player buying defense cards, fortunately for everyone else.
I'd be curious to see how many of the cards in the pile, the great pile of cards that is Killer Bunnies, are weapons. And then
There's
compare that to what percentage are you actually preventing from happening to yourself if you're stockpiling these defense cards.
that would be a
Mhm.
good thing to find out. For the pawn episode, we calculated how many cards are pawns relevant for. I should have done something similar for here, but I didn't think
Mhm.
ahead far enough.
That's okay.
uh,
Anyway, we could talk about application now.
yeah, sure.
What I was thinking about when I was thinking about defense cards is, it. We'll just say for the sake of argument, you've got a few defense cards just as a preventive manager, and we'll just say it's just because you have a bunny and you want to play some other different card with that bunny later in the game. And let's say Mikey decides to attack me with a weapon because I'm the only one with the bunny, and I use my defense card. It's very unlikely Mikey played two weapons in a row.
hmm
Mhm.
Unless he's
Possibly.
playing very aggressively. But if he's playing that aggressively, you have to wonder why he's playing that aggressively. Is it because I'm that much of a target, or is it because he's that far ahead that he can do this?
hmm
In any case, let's just say that he plays the one weapon and I stop it with a defense card. I'm almost giving myself at least 1 or 2 run cards of freedom to survive because he very unlikely played a second weapon in a row,
hmm
thinking he's going to kill it on the first try anyway. Or maybe he's not thinking that. Maybe he's thinking the defense cards maybe not going to get used or something like that.
Well, what I think sometimes I would do is if I were to play two in a row, well, the first one is depletes your defense cards. The second one actually is meant to kill you.
That's true. That's
hmm
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
it's a common strategy.
the other thing too is though, what if it's like a level 7 weapon or a level 5 weapon? where
Hmm.
maybe I can just get the dice roll to work out, and maybe I don't have to think I need to spend my defense card.
Yeah.
If I don't have all that dollar built up, maybe I want to save that, 12 unit defense card for a bigger weapon.
But then you risk die. I mean, that just
That's
happened
true.
today.
That's very true.
I was playing a game today. My sister laid a level 4 weapon on me. I thought, oh, I don't want to waste my defense cards on it. Well, I died.
It's usually how
I
it
think
goes.
I think a lot of the reason why, especially my circle that I play in, doesn't use defense cards is they think they can get the dice roll.
Hmm.
Yep.
Oftentimes they think they can get the dice roll and then they can save their defense card for when they absolutely need it, when they absolutely need to keep the bunny alive.
Yep.
Because they have their big card coming in the run.
Hmm.
Or it's getting close to late game and you need a bunny to win the game.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's two definitely very interesting discussion points that you brought up there. Is that first of all, the thing I like about defense cards is they create a excellent risk versus reward system. Do I want to spend my defense cards on this medium value weapon, or do I want to save them for a high value weapon that's for sure coming at some point?
Hmm.
That's just how the game goes. But how important is this money to me right now that I can risk the die roll? Because defense cards are guaranteed. They they
Yep.
they they, uh, they reduce less luck aspects, so
Yep.
that can be favorable. But in some cases, it may be better to take the die roll, even though defense cards are so efficient and
Hmm.
Yep.
are worth spending even in the kitchen whisk scenario. They're still efficient in that scenario. You probably still wanted to take the die roll. It's just because you can have that defense card later. The other interesting point there that we could discuss here is you brought up the idea of tempo, which is something we haven't discussed yet on Bunny Banter on any of the previous episodes. Um,
Yep. I'm
con-
definitely a tempo player.
yeah, considering how different, I mean, we could basically do a whole topic on this, but briefly here, how do people usually order their cards? And that's definitely something that if a good player will be able to read their opponent and figure out what cards they likely have set down as their runs.
Yep.
And for some opponents, that's easier than others because it's not as that it's not as though everyone is playing with the poker face and killer bunnies. Nor do I think everyone should. Nor do I think it's necessarily viable to do so. Might be
Hmm.
declared aggressive.
Yeah, if you're playing that too, if you're playing serious, then people are going to come out and get you every time.
Yep.
Probably.
If you're having fun, then it's you get a little bit more grace, I would say.
Hmm. I think so. Yeah. That.
And then sometimes you have, your opponent is like a god player who can look at the card and say, oh, that is from the blue set, and this person has this look on his or her face. Oh, it must be this card.
Yeah, I did that
Or
to.
or when the chocolate cards start coming up and everybody gets spooked because all the chocolate cards are toxic, Jeff.
Jarnak,
when
Atlas
Matthew starts
Shrugs.
making a kissing face and starts putting mints in his mouth, I know what's coming.
That sounds like something you would do.
Well, or when everybody's getting really when the chocolate card's coming up in Mikey's pile, and he's looking around, he's trying to change the topic of conversation. I know the conch is coming. I just know it.
Oh, the
When you
conch,
have so many
the
toxic
Atlas
cards and the
Shrug,
chocolate expansion.
Chazbot. Ooh. That's true. Yeah. Just 2 days ago in a remix game, I saw Quincy draw a khaki card, and he spent a long time reading it, and I immediately knew it was Ice 9. Because what other khaki card in remix could it possibly be? It has to be Ice 9. And then, I thought, okay, at that point I realized, what else can I read from Quincy? Then I kind of looked at him for a while, and then I got the intuition. He seems to have a low level weapon as his top run card. And there was a level 2 weapon from Violet. I'm like, how did I get that good of a read? I
Yep.
lost that
Yep.
game, by the way, but,
Oh
still.
well.
See, that's where I think just experience of game really helps because people like Matthew or myself or Mikey, we've played the game long enough that we don't necessarily need to spend more than 5 seconds looking at the card to know what it does.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
I don't have to spend 5 minutes thinking about Ice Nine saying, "Huh, how is this applicable to this game?" Because I already know what the good combos are with it.
Hmm. Yeah, it becomes harder to read people as they get more experience because with new players, you know what cards in specific sets, if you're familiar with the sets, you know what cards in specific sets would give new players difficulty in understanding. That's
Yep.
how I knew it. Quincy had Ice 9. But for experienced players who know what all the cards do, they don't have to read them and they'll just draw cards and be like, oh, I have Ice 9. So then they'll just continue on with their lives. And maybe they reveal it in some obvious way. You know, they start getting really excited. But that's kind of part of the game there is, you know,
Or if you draw Atlas Shrug in a two-player game,
oof.
what are you gonna do?
I know.
You're
Yeah,
gonna be like, "Woohoo! I won the game!"
almost. Except you last time we played that, you missed the
Yeah, that
Atlas
was
Shrugged in a
sad.
two-player
That
game.
was sad.
That was really sad, especially since you had white stuff and didn't remember that you had
I,
it.
I, well, it didn't even matter. It didn't even matter because you shouldn't. Ah, never mind.
It
That's
was
getting
it
off
was
topic.
so sad. Yeah, we're definitely off topic at this point,
I think
anyways.
I can wrap this back around. I think a really important conversation we have to have about defense cards is which do you choose, the defense card or the black pawn?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Oh,
That's definitely an
Because
interesting point.
I've always felt, how many times have we played, Matthew, where the black pawn is always bought before a defense card? It always
Pretty
is.
much every time.
I would say 100% of the time, not even questioning, unless you have like a free two defense cards card,
Well, yeah,
you
that's the
know.
exception.
And that's the only exception. And it doesn't really matter in that case because you didn't spend any dollar,
Hmm. Yeah, the
you know.
black pawn is more consistent in that, first of all, back to our pawn discussion 2 episodes ago, the black pawn is the one that's used the most. It has the most
hmm,
cards that reference the black die.
Well, and part of that too is just because of the weapons.
Exactly, a lot of it's just the weapons. So then you have to ask yourself, do I want to spend $5 on the black pawn and have this consistent source of rerolls? Or do I want to spend $3 on a single use defense card?
That's the question. And I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit, knowing that we were going to talk about defense cards today. Um, I would, for me in the past, until I really thought about this, I always bought the black pawn first
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes, you get that level 4 weapon or level 6 weapon, and in two rolls, you can probably get above it. You probably can get above it.
Yeah.
hmm.
But there's often times where you just goof up twice.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you have to ask yourself, why am I trying to protect the bunny in the first place? It's
Yeah.
basically because of tempo. In most cases, I would say.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
The
just
other only cases are either you're way ahead and you're protecting yourself just from winning,
Hmm.
or you're just trying to build up this thing because you need to get some big cards off to save yourself from the person that is way ahead.
mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
that's definitely the case. Mm-hmm.
yep. So I was just kind of thinking, Black Pawn beyond weapons has some uses, but there aren't that many that matter nearly as much as some of the other pawns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially as Almond Crisp comes out in 2 years, we'll have the opportunity for 4 black pawns. How
Yeah,
many
that's
black
going to be,
how many black pawns do you buy compared to how many defense cards do you buy, and where's the equivalence?
yep, for
Well,
sure.
you need to find a balance between, you know, you're fairly safe from lower level weapons if you have the black pawn. But then you get nuclear warhead or something like that, you
Then the
only
pawn
have
is meaningless.
then the pawn's meaningless. So you shouldn't feel so safe having the black pawn. You could perhaps buy a black pawn or two if you get, once we get into the whole almond crisp situation. But then you need to figure out, okay, what is the minimum amount of defense cards that I should have to protect myself from the higher level weapons,
Hmm.
For sure.
which could be just, okay, so I buy so many defense cards until I get 12, so then I can at least protect myself from nuclear warhead or one of those higher level weapons. And that in the without the
Chris, there's some background noise on your end.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm feeding the cat.
uh,
Feeding the cats, okay.
uh, with without the addition of these higher defense cards yet that we're speculating, it may be more expensive for you to try to purchase 12 defense units. But now with this addition, it'll be a lot easier to create this balance between having the black pawn, which will protect you from lower level weapons, and also receiving or buying at least 12 getting at least 12 defense units to protect you from higher level weapons. It'll be uh, less expensive, hopefully, because you'll have more of a chance to get anything higher than 12. So, uh, I don't remember where I was going with that. I kind of lost my train of thought. But that I guess that plays into the benefits of having these extra or these higher cards, um, but also kind of ties it into the idea of the black pawn and that discussion we were having.
I think the important part here is the defense cards are, for the most part, guaranteed, as long as you have the
Yeah.
right amount. And the pawn, yet good, it's not guaranteed by any means.
Hmm.
And then in a game like Killer Bunnies, where 90% of the game is not guaranteed,
Hmm.
you
Controllable,
have to
yet yeah, not
it's
guaranteed.
control. So like the win condition itself is not guaranteed by any
Hmm.
means.
Yep.
And there's so many other things like weapons, and everything's a dice roll for the most part.
Hmm. Controllable dice
Besides
rolls, yeah.
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. Where if you can get a guaranteed, I get to live another turn, that's a great thing to have.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Where the pawn, and I was thinking about this too. I wonder how much this discussion changes per players playing the game. Because
True.
in two people, I think the defense cards is way more valuable
Hmm.
Yes, for sure.
than in like a 5-player game, because I can buy 2 defense cards and I can probably protect myself from any weapons you play for at least a turn or two. Whereas in a 5 or 6-player game, if everybody decides to play a weapon on me, I really can't provide enough defense cards to cover it.
Hmm. It
But
brings
then
up
also
the. Yeah, go ahead.
you have you have more people that could have weapons played on them, so you may buy these defense cards and never actually have to
That's
use
the
them.
other thing. Yep, it goes both ways. Um,
Ultimately, it all comes back to the passivity meta, as all
Yeah.
strategies do. It it brings up the topic. Why do I need to protect my bunnies? And the answer is, I've been playing aggressive. In most cases, if I'm buying defense cards, I've been playing aggressive, or an aggressive player is targeting me. Probably because I was playing aggressive before. I think
Not
it's
always, but sometimes.
not always, yes, but I'm oversimplifying it. But it brings up. I was very interested in Mikey's analysis of the pawns and the defense cards and how you balance it. They kind of, in some sense, require each other. Because if you have the black pawns, then your bunnies are surviving these low value, medium value weapons more consistently. And thus you
Hmm.
have more bunnies. And since you have more bunnies, you're more of a target. By surviving, you have created yourself to be more of a target and thus have been labeled more aggressive and thus have the need for defense cards. Just
That's
by
interesting.
playing
Mhm.
defensively.
Yeah, I think it requires a good mix. If you have both, that's great. Unfortunately, right now, really only one person can have a black pawn. And if you buy white and turn it to black, people are going to look at you funny because there's so many better applications for the white pawn.
There can be.
Mm,
You know, I mean, if the first pawn in the shop isn't bought that is white, white should always be bought first because you can just decide what color it is.
Good, yeah, if you want to limit, you're limiting your own future options by limiting your opponent's current options. It's
Right.
probably good in most cases.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why you should leave it on the board for your opponent to make the decision.
Yeah,
Obviously, I think by me talking, everybody's realizing that I like the guarantee things in the game.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's good for the uh, aggressive players like to have guaranteed things because if they can guarantee scenarios in the position they're in, they are in a very good position going into the late and at the end of the game. Because if they're in a winning position and they can guarantee that their bunnies will be safe in most cases, then they're going to can stay in their winning position.
Yep.
For sure. And I think something else we should talk about. Um, there are just a little bit on the. I know we weren't going to talk about this today, but a lot of the end game strategy involved with killer bunnies. And
Hmm.
if maybe you don't need defense cards if you have, an Area 51 bunny that you Area 51 for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
maybe.
maybe, if you have a coma bunny, or, if you have a bunny as basically safe for the end of the game kind of card, there's a few of them that I'm missing. I don't remember their names, Matthew. There's
Yeah, there's
Stasis is one.
suspended animation. Yep.
There you go. That's what it's called. Yeah.
And of course, the Heavenly Halo's the obvious one.
Yep.
Yep. Hail in the Hail. Like in those cases, maybe your $3 spent better elsewhere.
Hmm. Yeah, in the end game, you
Even though
always
they,
have
they
to. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I was saying, like, $3, that goes a long way for a lot of the small cards. And it also goes a long way towards a more carrots if you're saving $3 every turn from like a
Yep.
Gleeful or even just drawing really a lot of money. Um, and if you're able to have a bunny safe for the end of the game anyway, so that you're in the drawing, those, why are you protecting the other meaningless bunnies? Not meaningless, but you know what I mean. Like,
What if they're Kinder bunnies?
well, that's another story, Matthew. That's more of that's something else. But
Well,
you have to ask yourself, do you want to be this giant target with all the wall of bunny circle and be buying defense cards just to protect your giant wall? Because the giant wall doesn't win the game for you, it's the winning carrot that wins the game for
sure.
you.
Hmm.
But like if you have a card in Area 51 with a Heavenly Halo, well, that bunny can't do anything. I mean, the Heavenly Halo, you can't play
That's
aggressive.
true. That's very true.
So and it's a little different with Area 51 where you literally can't do anything versus Heavenly Halo, you can still collect carrots and things. But if you have a bunny in Area 51, it's nice to have those defense cards to protect the maybe one bunny that you have sitting out there that you can use to play aggressive cards or steal from other people or something like that.
That's true.
But if
I'm
you,
just thinking ahead that, it's awesome to have those extra bunnies to protect from your Heavenly Halo being stolen or destroyed or something along those lines, but you're making yourself the big target. And oftentimes, I think many of us have felt that we were way ahead the whole game, and then someone played a card that ruined my day.
it's the aggressive
Yeah.
philosophy. I just
We've
stopped
all
drawing
we've
good
all played
cards.
aggressive at some point in our lives, and that day always comes where you get dethroned as the big kahuna. So
Like when
all
somebody
I'm
buys
saying in
all
this
the
is
carrots.
maybe it's not always best to be the big kahuna.
Mhm.
May-
And therefore, maybe it's not always best to buy defense cards, because usually in the case where you need them, you're the one being targeted, and usually if you're the one being targeted, you're the one being aggressive. Usually. Not
Yeah.
always. There's always exceptions.
that is not to downsize what the defense card's value is, because obviously it's probably one of the most efficient mechanics in the game.
One of them
Mm.
for sure. Although
At
if we
least
could
top five.
top five, well, yeah, there aren't that many that we can
Well,
actually
yeah.
calculate, to be fair. If we want, we could calculate carrots as infinite if it's the winning carrot. Infinite value for that carrot. So the calculations are a bit off, but if we compared the same calculations of efficiency to something like pawns, every time a pawn saves one bunny, that's quite a few times during the game.
Hmm.
So pawns are very efficient as well. Um, I had a point I wanted to make. I forgot it now.
Well,
It'll come back. So the defense cards, you always have to ask yourself, do I need these defense cards? Because if you spend the money on them, then and they're not used, that was wasted dollar. That was the point I was going to. In the
ah,
end game, dollar is very important because you need to have the dollar for the carrots. And
yep,
if there's a player without a bunny, you want to have the most dollar to get all of their carrots for sure.
yep,
It's a large reason the passive strategy is viable is because if no one's targeting you and targeting everyone else, then perhaps you have the most dollar because you weren't spending it on defense cards or food. You weren't spending it on any of that. You might probably weren't even buying carrots until the end game. Somebody is left without bunny. You have all their carrots all of a sudden.
yep.
So in the end game, it's certainly a difficult thing to figure out dollar management strategies. It's a very
Yeah.
complicated analysis, very lots of conditionals involved. Figuring out how likely is are these opponents going to target me with these weapons, and why are they doing so? Will they stop if I have defense cards? Will my defense cards be able to outlast them? Perhaps I should just die early so that I can recover later instead of dying on the last turn right as soon as I run out of defense cards. So many different calculations involved that a lot of it you can't do all those calculations mid game.
Yeah.
No.
It has to be intuition. You have to have a good understanding of the pace of the game. You have to have a good understanding of your opponent's place in the passivity meta. You have to have a good understanding of where you're currently being viewed in the passivity meta. Are you being currently viewed as a passive player? Well, then you're probably not going to be targeted. You have to have a good understanding of the pace of the game, how much Dala people have specifically, including potential Dala from things like Carrot Top Casinos. Always watch out for those neutral players like myself who will save those until the last turn. And
Hmm.
you just have to be conscious of for all of that at once to figure out is this viable? Something as simple as spending $3 on a defense card, even though it's extremely efficient. You have to ask yourself, is it viable and is it worth it?
I think a big
Yep.
part of it too is, you know, what are the situations? I know we talked about this a little bit already, but I feel like a lot of the pace of the game, you should be trying to build yourself security when you get to the end. And maybe defense cards is a good way to do that to get your, sure way to have that bunny at the end. I found oftentimes when there's like opponents that are eliminated from the drawing is because either somebody got way ahead and totally mutilated them mid-game, or they just didn't build up enough security throughout the game.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. If you're playing an aggressive strategy throughout the game, I think defense cards are a strong consideration even towards the very late game, just to make sure you don't have any sneaky neutral players playing their antimatter raisins on the last turn, killing your only 9 bunnies. I say only 9 bunnies because the aggressive player probably has 9 bunnies at that point.
Yeah.
And then they'll be very sad and they'll think, oh, it's all luck based. Everyone targeted me because they don't like me. No, they targeted you because you're an aggressive player and you complain a lot.
Ooh, we didn't talk about this, but we probably should have. Um, why defense cards over clovers and horseshoes?
Ah,
They do the same thing,
well,
more or less.
similar. Defense cards are one-time use and eliminate the weapon. Well, not eliminate, protect fully from the weapon, while clovers and horseshoes only protect a single bunny. I think,
Do you find
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, do you find the person that has 12 units of defense cards more of a target, or the person has 6 clovers?
Ooh, that's a fun one. I would personally target the person with the defense. Well, it depends on the weapon, of course. It always depends on the weapon. But the person with defense cards, if they're buying defense cards, they're probably an aggressive player. That's just typically what we label them as.
Or they just have a gleeful?
Or they just have a red gleeful, which I'm targeting them anyways then. Shame on them. Red gleeful is objectively aggressive. Shame on them.
But
Curse you,
also,
super red.
I
Oh,
would target the person with the defense cards because you can get rid of those defense cards by targeting them and them using it. So then eventually they'll run out of defense cards, and they, of course, they could always buy more. But the only you can use what Black Cat gets rid of clovers. Are they any more? I'm not sure.
abduction mechanics would do it, but that's indirect.
Yeah,
Those are so rare circumstances too.
yeah. So I would target the person with the defense cards because then those defense cards, those defense units go away, and then poof, uh, what's the word? I can't think. Not available, but they're
Their supply.
Used up.
yeah, they used up. Uh, I don't remember the word. It's escaped me, but
Their
they're
their their first line of defense is gone.
yeah. We'll just say that. Um, yeah,
And they'll draw a $5 next turn and buy more defense cards.
That's right. And we hope they draw the 0 because they deserve it.
Although, I've always found when somebody has defense cards, or even clovers for that matter, I'm more likely just to forget about them with the weapon and just play a Feed the Bunny.
Yep.
So I don't want to deal with waiting to kill their bunny.
And then they'll
yeah,
draw forever cabbage and water, and then sad day. Almost. If someone has a ton of defense cards, like if they've had a red gleeful bind for like 10 turns and nobody can get rid of it for some reason, everyone ignored it for whatever reason, uh, probably because they're playing neutral, and it bought 10 defense cards. And at that point, do you want to target them with a weapon? Because it's like, are you ever going to be able to eliminate this line of defense? I think if you team up with several people, you could
yeah.
very easily, but can you do it yourself?
Takes
Probably
a
not.
lot.
Probably not.
Probably not. It
Um,
takes a lot of
that's
medium value weapons.
But in a
we
two-player game, you have no choice. So
well,
Fair
that's
point.
true.
You could play passive
No,
strats in 2-player.
we've made a lot of comparisons to the cabbage and water as opposed to defense cards. Do you think Jeff is going to ever introduce a card that takes the whole defense card pile and discards it, or adds it to your supply?
Yeah, Chris and
We
I were.
have those for cabbage and water.
Well, we have it for defense, in EM Pulse, but there's only one of them. I'd like to see more.
But doesn't that takes away what you've already saved up though?
Oh yeah, you mean the whole supply? Oh yeah, we
I'm
need one of
talking about
those.
this whole supply.
As long as we don't get one that draws the whole supply.
I mean, we have that for water and cabbage already.
Very true. Oh my! If we got one that drew the whole defense card supply, I would be
I want.
sufficiently spooked.
I feel like I have a, not to be the prophet that I am, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the discard one is coming because of the addition of defense cards.
That
yeah,
would be
That would make
I think so. Yeah, makes sense.
at least a discarding one. I'm not sure about drawing the whole pile because after this video, there's going to be instant regret about ever talking about defense cards again because everybody's going to start using them.
And then everyone will target the player with defense cards because they know how efficient it is if they don't. That's something we didn't bring up is the case where an opponent ignores you because of defense cards. What's the efficiency of that? And it gets terrifying because you could consider that the defense cards have already protected you once, you still have them, and someone else was targeted as an indirect result. I was calculating it with Mikey earlier in the week, and you can consider it about a 12,000% efficiency in the case
Well,
of the
you're not.
nuclear
Yeah.
warhead.
Yeah.
You're not only avoiding your own damage, you're basically willing it to someone else.
Exactly. And unlike the, you can make a comparison to the Forever Cabbage and Forever Water, but unlike those, this strategy is pretty much exclusively for aggressive players, where, you talk about with the Forever Cabbage, Forever Water, they won't
Mhm.
give them away. They'll be very ruthless in their trades. They'll be like, "Oh, you need two cabbage? Oh, that's a shame. Give me $10 for two cabbage." They'll do things like that. That
Yeah.
sounds like it's exaggerating, but I've seen more aggressive trades than that.
Yep.
uh, the defense cards you can't trade in time because you can't trade with a person if it's not their turn or if it's not your turn. So all of a sudden, somebody plays a weapon on someone else, and you have this giant supply of defense cards. You don't have the opportunity to share it, so therefore it is basically an exclusively aggressive benefit for someone else being targeted. So once
You could
people
always
realize that, I think people will target the players with defense cards more because they realize the aggressive strategy benefits so much from not being targeted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you have to ask yourself too, and this goes for any really card game. If someone is allowed efficiency in a card game, it's usually not going to help you later in the game as the opponent.
Yeah.
However, if someone is allowed triple the efficiency they would have originally gotten, you're probably going to lose in some manner, and it's going to be ugly.
Hmm.
But then you also have to ask yourself, is this the kind of game where maximizing an efficiency in one area, does that actually equal victory?
Not necessarily.
Right.
Depends. It's all balanced there.
I,
But
I, I just think of, the games where I have all this plus in my hand and I can't use any of it because none of it fits the situation.
exactly. Yeah, you could have
Like, what
Atlas
if
Shrugged, the Conch, and all of that stuff in your hand, but if you can't use it, what good is it?
it's just taking a space then?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same could be for defense cards. You could spend all your money on defense cards, sure, but if nobody targets you, that's value. Yes, and it's excellent value if no one targets you, because then it's as if you play. You could simplify it down to if an opponent plays a weapon on another opponent, it's as if you played that weapon yourself. You
Yep.
basically gained a turn if you want to simplify it down to that level.
I
Um,
think that's the important analogy here is you're gaining turns to be
yeah,
safe.
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
If
gaining an extra two cards maybe of your own aggressive play that you choose.
Yes, I think defense cards benefit most the aggressive strategy. Because of that, if someone is buying defense cards in several groups, especially those that listen to this podcast, they may start labeling defense cards as an aggressive strategy because if they start buying them, they're clearly up to something. They're setting up
Mhm.
for some amazing play, or they've already done some amazing play, like playing the extra super pink, Toxic
Yep.
Bunny. Let's all take a moment to be thankful it can't be resurrected. If they already have that, or if they're setting up for that by buying defense cards, then all of a sudden you're labeling defense cards themselves as aggressive rather
Mhm.
than the players, and punishing anyone who would buy defense cards in other circumstances. It's like having, we talked about Frank playing as a passive neutral player,
Yep.
and he'll occasionally have, looking at Starter Sign Remix, he'll occasionally have two bunnies of the same color,
Mhm.
and in all normal circumstances, that would be considered threats for a triplet.
Yep.
But Frank, as the passive player, we know that he won't go for the triplet. So if you
Yep.
want to go for I think it's very difficult for a neutral player to go for defense cards because they may be labeled as aggressive for doing so.
Yep.
I think they're missing a lot of tempo too if they're choosing to go that route. A neutral player won't necessarily be going all in all the time.
Yes, yeah,
They're only going to they're only going to be picking their moments to shine.
yep,
Where
yeah,
so buying defense cards, they might be missing out on their opportunity to maybe buy a bunny here or buy a carrot here that they need later. or
Exactly.
no?
Yeah.
Now, here's a thought about a more neutral aggressive strategy with the defense cards that we haven't talked about. Matt, you had mentioned trading and how it's not really a viable option with defense cards. But what if you're in a situation where somebody's going to play an aggressive card on you or on somebody that perhaps you're in alliance with? You could offer to trade defense cards to the person who's going to play the weapon, either to not play the weapon on you or to play it on somebody else other than the person you're in the alliance with,
I
which would then,
really like that trade.
yeah, and
That's a,
then it would be seen as something a little less aggressive, especially if it's being played on you. And it's another way to use defense cards that is kind of out of the ordinary.
definitely. That trade seems amazing on paper. I'm definitely going to exploit it until people realize what I'm doing because it seems almost passive.
Hmm.
It's definitely an excellent neutral aggressive strategy. And that seems almost passive. I'm giving you a benefit of defense cards. Look at these excellent, efficient defense cards. I was going to spend them anyways to protect myself. Here, you can just have them, but play the weapon on someone else. I'm
Yeah.
gaining the benefit of my defense cards were going to be spent anyways.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm also gaining the benefit of the weapons being played on someone else. It's probably a high value weapon if I'm willing to trade defense cards. They may
Yeah.
be losing 5 bunnies out of the deal. And my opponent gets a defense card, and he's been already labeled as aggressive. And all of a sudden, I'm playing a perfect neutral strategy where my opponent's already being labeled as aggressive. I'm making them seem more aggressive by giving them defense cards. Everyone will be targeting them because they have a relatively low amount of defense cards. They won't be targeting me because I'm willingly giving away my defense cards. And I think
Yeah.
you have found the neutral strategy, Mikey, for defense
Not
cards.
it. Now, see, I'm gonna burst your bubble
Oh,
Be- because you're missing one key point. Um, you're gonna trade the defense card to the weapon player, and then he's gonna target the guy next to you instead. The guy next to you is not gonna like you after that
well, you
because you
the,
threw them.
the idea is you
Because
don't
you
you don't specify who to target. You just say if you play the
It
weapon
doesn't
somewhere else.
matter because you basically have said, I'm gonna bribe myself to be with the aggressive player.
But you are also you're defending yourself. So if it would seem more aggressive if, like, say, you were doing it if he was going to play it on somebody who was in an alliance with you. But if somebody is just trying to protect themselves, well, I might not like them all that much, but that would be something that would be more admissible, at least to
I think
me.
it depends because if the person playing the weapon is way ahead anyways, and clearly the other player isn't gonna think, oh, I thought we were working together, and now you're not helping. You should have just taken the bullet for this one because I have my weapon coming that's gonna kill him, and you probably should have known that.
I
I don't
think
know.
I
It,
think to
it
get away with it as the neutral player, you often have to do it within the context of I will give you this if you don't play it on me, rather than saying I will give you this if you play it on someone else. As soon as you say play it on someone else, you are labeled as at least neutral aggressive, if not aggressive yourself. If you
I don't
say
think it
don't
works.
play it on me, it seems purely defensive, even though the same intention is there.
I don't think it's
To
possible to be. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting.
At least it seems that way to several players. Players that are quite familiar with the passivity meta would see it as otherwise.
I don't think it's possible for it to work as a neutral strat unless there's more than 3 people playing. You
Well, yes,
have
for
to
sure.
have you have to give the aggressive player the choice between the other 2 opponents.
Yes, for sure.
If you do not give them the choice, then the person trying to get away from getting the weapon is just as much a target, in my opinion.
Yeah. In order for the passivity meta to actually work, it has to be within the context of 4 or more players in most all cases. So yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, yeah, so I think Mikey has taught us never say a mechanic is not fitting for a category.
There you go.
Because as soon as I thought, oh, maybe it doesn't work for neutral, Mikey's like, no, look, here's a perfect example. I'm like, oh, wow, that works.
I think
uh,
it works for passive too.
I think it could work for passive.
Hmm.
Um, in the passivity meta discussion, we talked about how the aggressive strategy is typically the counter to the passive strategy because the aggressive player won't care that the passive player has been nice the whole game, they'll target them anyways. You know, they
Hmm.
might only have one Kinder Bunny and they'll try to attack that Kinder Bunny. However, I think an aggressive player and most aggressive players will not like targeting someone with a defense unit because it seems less effective, and it is
Hmm.
technically. Um, if they're attacking someone without a defense unit, maybe they don't care who they're targeting. They attack someone without a defense unit, they have an opportunity to kill a bunny. If they attack someone with a defense unit, that person is guaranteed to survive,
Yep.
and that seems less impactful. I put a poll in the Discord that asked if people were more likely or less likely to target a player with defense units with a weapon, and it was an even split. Literally even split between I think it was like 6 people answered. So probably not a big enough sample size, but there's plenty of players out there that will not target people if they have defense cards. And I think
I'm probably one of those.
yeah, I think a lot of people are. And I think they're
Although
usually leaning more towards the aggressive side.
that's to say though that you might on you. I think you probably should have clarified that you're targeting with weapons
I
because
did.
there's so many other ways to kill stuff. And maybe that's where that other part comes in, where I'm not worried about them having defense cards because I have 5 Feed the Bunnies in my hand.
Yeah, I did clarify in the poll that it was specifically referring to weapons, but perhaps several people misread it. Perhaps 3 people misread it and then decided they're going to target them anyways, but who
Well,
knows?
I would target them. I
Yeah,
would. I would. I've talked about that before. That if somebody has defense cards, I'm going to target them because then you get rid of those defense cards.
exactly. Yeah. You're guaranteed to get rid of the defense cards. There you go.
Yeah.
Instead of the possible chance to kill bunnies. So it all comes down to, I think we've established, it all comes down to the passivity meta, and it all comes down to what is going to be viable in your group, and what strategies can you experiment with that will potentially have a large impact.
Yep.
I think that's what these strategies discussions will always come down to, but it's good to look at specific cases, especially with London coming and the high likelihood we're getting more defense cards. So any closing thoughts on defense cards before we close here?
Buy them.
Buy them.
Buy them
Yeah.
all.
Buy them. Yes. There. I guess that
Buy them,
works.
says
I
Chris.
think it's an often forgotten. I think it's often forgotten that they're
Yes.
a thing,
hmm
and I think we're making a very sad mistake as players.
I think that could be the case. It'll definitely require some experimenting. Definitely lots of unexplored strategy and everything killer bunnies.
Oh, we
Yeah.
never talked about the time to buy them though. If we're gonna start buying them as more of a, I'm collecting these, kind of like medals.
Yeah, sure, we could discuss that briefly. When do you think is
Um,
the optimal time, Chris?
I would say I still believe that the medals hold more value if you can get them, and I still believe to some extent certain pawns are more valuable. I would say if you have, a blue card that requires a blue pawn, like a blue P card or a green P card, you should always be buying those pawns first, just so you get double efficiency off the cards. Um, because those, you get to choose when you can play those. That's the big thing.
hmm
After that, I would say early mid to late mid is your big opportunity to be buying defense cards.
hmm Yeah, at that point, all the pawns will be bought. However, that might change when we get Almond Crisp and we get double of all the pawns. There will
Yeah,
be
the power creep is coming.
power
The
creep is
power creep is
coming.
coming.
Sure. How
It's
many pawns
coming.
did we say were there going to be? 20 pawns, was it?
I
Gotta buy
think
that
so.
Pawn
brown pawn.
recall incoming. Pawn
Pawn
recall
recall
incoming.
incoming. Brown pawn for the memes. That's the new one Frank will buy. Forget the pink pawn. Brown pawn's even less useful.
Just
Unless,
wait, my burrowing bunnies are coming.
okay.
I'm calling it.
You make the custom card, Chris.
I need to make the custom card, and nobody's gonna understand my reference, but it's gonna happen. It's missing from the canon of Killer Bunnies, and I just know it's gonna happen someday.
Okay. Mikey, any thoughts on when you should buy defense cards? You kind of agree with Chris, or?
Well, yeah, in the context of full set, I would agree. When you're playing with, starter set and red booster, like I've been doing recently, teaching my sisters, um, I'm buying defense cards right away. Because there's really no other, you don't have the pawns to use as preventative measures or anything like that. There's really no extra benefits. Buy the defense cards right away. It can help you to, um, so you don't die right away. And just like today, I bought, I think, 2 defense cards right away at the beginning, and that was able to last me the entire game. So, yeah, in that context, in the context of a situation where you're playing with beginner and just a couple booster sets, I would say buy right away.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think we've all had the opportunity where we feel like we're doing great, we play our bunny, and we play our good run card coming through this run pile, and then we draw the terrible misfortune, then we cry.
Yeah.
That can
Then you have
always
to
Because we
happen.
maybe
guardian
we
angel.
spent $9 on defense cards, thinking, oh, I gotta protect this bunny because I need to survive. It's gotta survive so I can play my big card, and
Then
then it
all of a
dies
sudden your
anyway.
defense cards are useless because you used the very tail misfortune.
And then
Oh,
nobody wants to trade for them because they just saw you get wiped out, so they know they're useless to you.
exactly. And if you ask for a bunny, we know you have something going on. Yeah, uh, I think 3 times there. I think we established that defense cards are something to not be ignored, whether they're in the shop or in someone's possession. Because if you do ignore them, it could get spooky.
Yeah.
So in closing, thank you, Chris, for joining us on Bunny Banter today. I'm sure we'll have you again on some time.
Oh,
Uh,
I appreciate it. It's
yeah,
been fun.
if anyone watching has any topic suggestions that they'd like to be on Bunny Banter, feel free to leave them in the comments below or directly message me on the Discord or email. Anything you'd like to say, Mikey?
Other than Jeff Bless, nothing else.
Jeff, bless.